start out with broad strokes,
Yeah.
you know, silhouette the idea. And then you come over time, you add more and more detail.
Yeah. And for me, sometimes I would get a thought like in my head or just kind of well up, whether it came from exterior or inside of me. And I would just sit down and I'd start writing. And sometimes like if it was a poem, like sometimes a poem would just flow from me. It's like I wasn't even writing it. It was just like all I was doing was like my bumbling hands were uncovering something that was already there. And whereas other times, like I would like wrestle with it. I would fight with like a paragraph or a word or a sentence, and I'd like, that doesn't work or whatever. So I'm very curious for the hands resistance specifically. For one, kind of a two-part question. One, what was it that inspired you to paint it in the first place? And then when you actually did sit down, part two is did it flow naturally? Was it easy for you to paint, or did you have to wrestle with it?
Well, I mean, actually, logistically, I'll give you a part of the explanation of the painting's creation is that it was done in about a 2-week time frame.
Okay.
And I had a collection of old family albums, and in the family album was a picture of myself and the neighbor's girl standing in front of my grandmother's apartment.
Yeah.
In Chicago. And the thing that struck me was the lighting. You know, there was some real sharp shadow and light areas, which tended to be true of all the photographs that my parents took back then. So they were material. Anyway, because I like that. I like the contrast. The contrast is going to give you 3 dimensions. You know, instead of just a flat palette of value, you have something that has a stark contrast, and therefore it pops. You know, it comes out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I started the painting, and at I think at the same time, my first wife wrote the poem, "The Hands Resisting."
Mm-hmm.
And for her, it was the element of my not knowing who I was because I was adopted. Yeah. And she said the hands resist him like the secret of his birth. And it was the idea that the child, that the doll standing next to me is a sibling that I don't know. Now, a lot of what I'm telling you is something that's come to me more over the past few years than it was at the time that I painted. At the time that I painted the hands, there was the poem, which kind of inspired me to create the disembodied hands in the gloom there, and then the you know, the environment that we lived in. I mean, it was a very haunted place.
This was
it was in the Matildaha, which is if you looked at a map, it would be going up between Ojai, Ventura, all the way over the mountains and into Bakersfield. So you're looking at a part of California's geography where there's these massive Tehachapi mountains are pushing the coast there, and they create these strange little culverts, you know, valleys and canyons and so forth. And the Matildaha was one of those. And that's where we lived. We lived in an old stage house that had been built in the 1800s. And there was a stream with trout in it. And I had a separate studio, and that's where I did my painting. But the place was surrounded by, you know, ancient oak trees and fossils in the river. So there was this, whenever I would go down to the stream to fish,
it's like a haunting atmosphere almost.
Absolutely a haunting atmosphere.
Yeah.
Owls. I had owls roosting on the house every night. I had the stream itself would chatter at me. I would go down there and I would hear voices coming out of it.
Wow.
I realized that these are the voices of the fossils.
Yeah.
Because marine fossils in the water in the rocks in the water all over the place. So it's like this was a whole ecology, ancient ecology that was talking to me.
Wow, that's amazing.
There's something very powerful about living in nature.
I agree. I kind of live in near a big city, near Salt Lake City, in Utah. I'm not in the heart of it. I'm in a suburb of it, but I agree completely. When the times that I have lived in the country, it's almost like a spiritual experience to be out in nature.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's because we are part of that. And
yeah.
when we hide ourselves away in cities or even in the suburbs, we're cutting off that source.
Yeah. Yeah.
And